Hello and welcome back. In this section, we're going to be cutting out hair using selections from channels. Now, anytime you have a good contrast between light and dark, channels are a great way to cut out hair. They create such accurate selections. I think they're the best selection tool in Photoshop when it comes to hair. So if you have light colored hair on a dark background or dark colored hair on a light background, channels are the go-to. So we're going to start this off. I'm going to use the pen tool just real quick to kind of cut out most of our subject, not including the hair, and then we're going to show you how to use channels to get perfect selections with hair. To start, let's go ahead and open up our image. We're in Chapter 2, Section 4, Advanced Selections with Channels. So we're going to open this up. I'm going to hit F for full screen, and now I'm going to use the pen tool to cut our subject out. So let's hit P for the pen tool, and we're just going to zoom in to the bottom of the image, and we're just going to go right around our subject. Now, if you need any help at all with the pen tool, we have a great pro tutorial called How to Master the Pen Tool in Photoshop. There we go. Okay, now we're going to just speed this process up. It's not the focus of the tutorial, but it is important in cutting the subject out. So we'll go ahead and speed it up, and we'll get back to you when we're ready to use channels to cut out hair. Well, there we have it. Just traced around our entire subject with the pen tool. Now, the reason I'm using the pen tool is because the majority of our subject has hard edges, like the edge of an object is a relatively hard edge, but hair is considered a soft edge. It kind of goes off in a bunch of different directions, and you have like little fine selections and things like that to take care of. So you can take care of the majority of your subject with the pen tool, and then when it comes time for their hair, that you can do with channels or other techniques that we're showing you in this tutorial. Here in Photoshop, we made our pen path. I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to go to Make Selection, and we're going to feather that by about 1 pixel. Let's hit OK there, and let's go ahead and click on our layer mask. There we go. So you can see it's done a nice job masking the majority of our subject out. I just need to actually take care of this little area. So let's go back to our paths. I'm going to create a new path. There we go, and we'll just do the same process real quick, and you just hang with me for this because it really doesn't take that long. The pen tool can take a little bit of time to kind of get used to using it, but once you have a good feel for how the tool works, you can see it really is a great effective tool for cutting objects out of their backgrounds. There we go. Again, just right click in there, go to Make Selection, hit OK, and then back on this layer mask, I'm going to hit Shift Delete, which is the keyboard shortcut for our fill dialog, and we're going to fill this with black, making it invisible. There we go, looking good. So at this point, our subject is fairly well cut out of the background, but obviously we need to take care of the hair. So we're going to use channels to do that. What we have here, I can't see the hair, but it's not a big deal. All I have to do is hold Shift and click on the layer mask, and that just temporarily disables the layer mask. Okay, so doing that is just a really great way. Now I can work with the original image. So now that the layer mask is disabled, we're going to go into our channels dialog. Now if you don't see channels dialog, there we go, let's just go to Window and down to Channels. Just make sure that's checked and you'll see your channels. So let's start by clicking on RGB. Now RGB is a combination of your red channel, green channel, and blue channel. It makes up all the colors in your image. If you click on your red channel, you'll see light information based on reds. So for instance, like our subject's skin is a relatively light color here because she has a lot of red in her skin. But for instance, if I click on the blue channel, you can see her skin gets darker. The reason is there's less blue in her skin than there is red. So that's kind of how channels work. Now, what I'm looking for is a contrast between light and dark. I want her hair to be as dark as possible and the background to be as light as possible. So if I click on my red channel, green channel, and blue channel, I can see that the blue channel is making her hair darker than the other two. So that's the channel we want to start with. It's all about the contrast between light and dark because we're just going to use this to make a selection. So now that we know our blue channel is what we want to start with, what we're going to do is duplicate it. Let's click and drag this down to the new channel icon. You can see we have a blue copy. So my next goal is to kind of enhance the contrast here. I want to make my darks a little darker and my light's a little bit lighter. We're going to hit Control or Command L on our channel, so you can adjust your channels. Now, never do this on an original color channel, because it's actually going to affect your image. Make sure you make a copy, like we've done here. You can see it says blue copy, and then we can adjust our levels. So in this case, I want my darks to be darker, so I'm going to take my black levels, and we're just going to take those a little bit darker. And I'm going to grab my white levels, and we're going to make those a little bit lighter. Okay, and it's this contrast, again, that's going to make our selection for the hair. There we are. And that looks really good. Let's hit OK there. And now we can turn this into a selection. So to turn a channel into a selection, there are two ways to do it. You can hold Control or Command and click here on the thumbnail. You can see Control or Command gives me that little marquee sign. So that will turn it into a selection. You can also click on this selection icon. It looks like a ring of dots. So that will also turn it into a selection. When selecting channels, it always selects the lighter areas. So in this case, it would be selecting the bed sheet that our subject is laying on. So if you want to select dark areas, like in this case, I do want to select dark areas because my subject's hair is dark. All you have to do is go to Select and then down to Inverse, and now you're selected the dark areas. Okay, so just a quick thing to keep in mind. So now we're basically just selecting the dark areas of the photo, and we're going to use this for our subject's hair. Going back to our layers, I just got to click on my layer mask, and you can see our selection is still active. If I click here on my layer mask and I paint white, it's going to make that area visible. So keep in mind, we have a selection now that's our subject's hair, just the darks, right? So we've selected our subject's hair. Now I'm going to paint white on my layer mask, and it's going to make it visible. Okay, but it's not going to make the sheet behind our subject visible because that's not selected. We're going to paint that white, but before I do, I've got one more step in here. I'm going to hit Control or Command H, and that hides my selection. You can hit Control or Command H again, and it'll bring it back. Now, if this is your first time hitting Control or Command H, it's going to say Hide Photoshop or Hide Extras. Be sure to click on Hide Extras. So getting back to our image, Control or Command H will hide those little selection areas, and now I'm simply painting white on my layer mask. And because the hair is selected, it's only going to allow me to paint where the hair is. Okay, it's not going to allow me to paint anywhere else. So we're just painting white right where we see our hair. There we go, all the way up to there. And you can see it just kind of joins in naturally with the rest of our subject. And there we have it. That's pretty much it. It looks awesome. So let's just deselect by hitting Control or Command D, and let's take a look at our layer mask. I'm going to hold Alt or Option and click on that layer mask, and look at that selection of hair. It's such a nice selection. You have so much detail when you select via channels. And this is, again, anytime you have a contrast between light or dark. So dark hair on a light background, light hair on a dark background, channels are going to be a wonderful tool for selecting out hair. In this case, we are pretty much done. We cut out the majority of our subject with the pen tool, which you can see we have really nice, well-defined edges there. Okay, that's the go-to tool for when you have relatively hard, well-defined edges. And then when it comes to hair, channels just, man, they do a wonderful job every single time. Join us in our next video where we show you how to select focus areas. For instance, if your subject is in focus and your background is out of focus, you can actually select your subject based on what's in focus. Then we're going to use Select and Math to refine that edge and get a great selection. It's going to be a very quick way to cut out hair.